Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm excited to mix it up a little bit and share the full update on our recent pantry renovation. This was my first really big home project that I tackled, and I'm very excited to share all the details with you in today's video. I wanted to share how I came up with inspo, how I came up with the design, any regrets, which when it comes to renovations, I feel like there's always a few things that you would like to know in hindsight. So I'll be sharing those with you in case you are doing a similar project in the future. And then of course, we'll be talking all about the finishes and design details and overall functionality of the pantry. So we'll be diving into it all in today's video, and I hope you enjoy. So to fully appreciate the full transformation of this pantry, let's go back to how it looked when we first moved in. In fact, it was an empty room. There were no previous shelves or any sort of organization in this space. The previous owners used some temporary metal shelves, so at the time, that's what we ended up doing as well. So here is a visual of how our pantry looked, and to me this seems and feels very chaotic. The lack of proper organization in this space felt so chaotic. It was really difficult to keep up with our pantry inventory, and things would expire. We would buy multiples of things, and not to mention things would like fall through these metal shelves. So it really wasn't ideal. So I knew this was a project that I would want to tackle sooner rather than later, but I also did not want to rush it because it is extremely important that it brings functionality to this space. This is a space that you enter multiple times throughout the day. So I really wanted to take the time to go through and think through what would be most functional for us. So when I first started thinking of this space, I created a note app in my phone, which is one of my ride or die phone apps. I use it all the time. But I started thinking through what I wanted as far as organization. So specific things that I wanted to include in our pantry, if I wanted specific drawers, if we needed organization for paper towels or whatever it was. I just started taking down notes as I came into the space for probably close to 6 months. I gave it some time to think through the function of the space, and I also started getting inspo on Pinterest. So if you want to take a look at my Pinterest board for this space, I will link my Pinterest down below. So after saving pins, it became very clear that there was a specific design aesthetic that I was looking for. For example, I was very drawn to the vertical shiplap detail for the backsplash. I knew I wanted to do some open shelving. I loved the warmth of natural wood to add sort of a design element to the space while still keeping it functional. I also knew when I looked into the room, I wanted that to be the most visually aesthetically pleasing, for example. And then I wanted most of the function to happen on the right side of the room as you walked in. If you're curious on the dimensions of this space, if you are wondering how much space I was working with, if you have a similar space, it was roughly 86 by 73 inches. I will also link to a blog post that has all of the important details like that linked down below if you want to quickly reference them after watching this video. So after I nailed down the functionality and overall design details of this space, I was ready to start on it. So here are a few clips. Most of these are probably iPhone clips going through some of the progress of the space. I did document this as it was happening kind of live over on my Instagram stories, and I do have a highlight saved. So if you want to see more details of me walking you through this transformation as it happened in real time, I would check that out over on Instagram. I'll have that linked down below. So now that you've seen the before and some of the during process of the pantry, let's head down there, and I'm excited to walk you through the final look of this space. All right, so I'm currently standing in our mudroom, which is right next to our pantry. This is another space. This is actually the first space that we renovated when we moved in. I think we started it the week we moved in. I was ready to get started. It was very simple, but I will link to that before and after if you're curious what this space looked like. But let's walk over to the pantry. So we did update the door frame here. When you walk in, it has this automatic trigger for the light, which is really nice. So when designing this space, honestly, when we first looked at the house, I visualized a nice decorative moment here. So I love how the shelving turned out. We used these Mackenzie Childs containers in, I believe this is like a silver color, which ties in really nicely with the wallpaper. And if you're curious what's in here, this one has Jolly Ranchers. I kind of have little hidden goodies away from Josie, and then this one's my favorite one. If you want to guess what's in here, it's actually empty almost, but we got some nerd clusters. which became my addiction last year. I don't recommend if you don't want to get addicted to them because they're so good. This was just like a faux floral from Home Goods. Like I mentioned earlier, we did not secure these with nails, but there is museum putty and they are like pretty secure. Like they're not gonna just fall over unless you like really knock it. Up here we have some espresso glasses. All of this is very functional. Obviously this is what I reach for the most often. And then up at the top we have some cookware that we don't use as often, but every now and then I do stand up on the countertops and get the pie and bread container down. In here, this is hiding, honestly, I'm so glad that we have cabinets to hide this stuff. Okay, this is why I did not want full open shelving. This is Tim's protein collection here. These things are so big and massive. I actually measured out how big it was when I was trying to figure out how deep I wanted these to be, because I specifically was like, okay, this is where the protein's gonna go. Honestly, nothing up at the top. That would just be extra storage as needed, like holiday things that we don't need to grab as often. Over here, we don't use this that often, but it's kind of like an alcohol cabinet. Never use this. Some Stanleys. I do have a little glass container up here, like we want to host. We honestly used this one time for Josie's first birthday party, and I think a bridal shower. And then little champagne glasses, again, nothing up at the top, which is nice because look, we have room to grow if we need to tuck things away. We honestly do still have a lot of unused space in here, which is nice. All right, so for these are honestly kind of just like tuck away junk drawers, like vitamins, like who even knows? We don't go in here. Oh, actually Tim probably goes in here all the time.
Every day.
Every day. With his concoctions of Ninja Creamies that he does every single day. So I guess he uses this quite often, but I do not go in here. This is like a junk, like literal junk, like candy, and my addiction to these Trader Joe's chips. This is where the extra stash goes. So these do actually store a mix of food and then just extra things like Stanley cups. This one gets pretty heavy. I had to kind of unload it because these are inset cabinets. So one thing to keep in mind with that is wood expands and they can move around and they're not coming out of the cabinet. So the fit has to be perfect with them. So this one was getting a little heavy. So I unloaded the jars and stuff in here, but this is a lot of pasta. So we have like mac and cheese, pasta sauces, rice, that type of vibe is in here. Yeah, lots of noodles. Down here is more baking stuff, like yummy banana bread, chocolate chips, pumpkin bread, just kind of baking stuff in there. Under here, we do have a lot of storage space still left over. Originally, when I was designing it, I wanted to put our nugget, hopefully I didn't have it at the time. Tim actually got it for me for my birthday, a nugget ice maker. And we had it in here, but we were concerned about it overheating. So we moved it to the garage. But we did put an outlet in specifically for that. But just keep that in mind if you do get that, it can overheat. I just had got comments about it when I shared it. So we went ahead and moved it before that happened. We have a nice little protector down here. And then this is honestly a lot of unused space. And then tucked away, there's like a little shelf and a lot of vases are tucked away in there. Yeah, still have a lot of room there. And here, this is like aluminum foil, sandwich bags, things like that. These little sauces that I hoard. So you know that they're gonna forget one day and ruin your life. So you got extras. Tim knows all too well not to forget my sauce when he picks up it to go. Okay. This was one of the design features that I saw a lot on my Pinterest inspo, and I was really adamant about making happen, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. It's nice that it gives some visual interest, and it's nice that it curves so you can still, like, it doesn't cut you off as you're working through here. Tim, like I said earlier, uses this every single night to make his Ninja Creamy, which is hiding over here in the corner. Then we have this little decorative moment. We have some apples in here. I have some mints in here. And some bananas, because we're in the pantry. there is an outlet hiding behind this cutting board. So on these shelves I have some extra cookbooks, and we had, I don't know where, I think I saw these at Home Goods and I just tuck away. I really like collecting seasonal napkins and like changing them out. So we have some for our bathroom and our kitchen island. So we obviously don't go through like the whole quantity. So they just kind of go in here, and then extra tumblers up there. This is all stuff that we don't use that often, but it's nice to have a little space for it. And you know, people are like, I did not want this to just have a ton of like visual clutter. So I love how these turned out. Tim uses or makes oatmeal every single day. So this hopefully has been functional for him. Yes, he says. And I got these labels off of Etsy, and I love how that came together. And we also use these nets like almost every day as well. So this is obviously our most reach for things. Now, if you're wondering where all the food is, it's all in this little cabinet here. I remember when this first went in, I got very nervous because it felt so big. Do you remember that? This was the first piece to go in, and I had to like come up with the dimensions and sizing of every single piece in here and like tell my carpenter exactly what to make. And when we put this in, I was like, oh my gosh, this is massive. It just felt huge. But this is where all the food storage is. One interesting design feature that I was very adamant about, again, was making this a sliding door, which I will say it's like not the smoothest. Like you have to like fight with it sometimes, but I do think it's helpful, and I'm glad that we have it as an option. So this door toots when you open it, but it can push in. Let's see how it will do today. Okay. So what I had in mind for this was when you bring groceries in, which I don't, Tim's a grocery shopper at the house. But you can put your groceries here. I've done it a couple times. My Trader Joe's chips. Put the
Bring your Trader Joe's chips.
We can put all the bags here, get the door out of the way so you can easily load and unload. So I am happy with that, although it's not like the smoothest door. And then here is where all the food is. I feel like it's worked really well for us. Down here we have drawers. Josie's snacks are all in there, so she can easily, I'm like, when she asks for snack, I tell her to come grab something. Something to keep in mind if you do want to add this feature to your cabinet, I do think that the length of it matters. Like this is a very tall, long door, so that could also be why there's, huh?
The height.
The height?
The height of it matters.
The height or the length? The length.
Or the height.
Okay, same thing. So I think that can complicate it a little bit more. But you have to have space in here, so you can't take this fully flush, so you will lose a little bit of storage, so just keep that in mind. I'm perfectly fine with that. We have more than enough room in here. And then also because we wanted to do drawers at the bottom, we again couldn't go the full length because you can't open drawers and have it hitting the doors. So there is some space on the other side there.
And I feel like when we did it, it looked weird, but I don't notice it.
Yeah, you were like, what are you doing with this?
No, I understood why we were doing it, but I felt like I was going to notice how I felt like I was going to notice it was smaller than the rest, but I don't.
That's good to know.
I guess that's my point.
Okay. One thing I did add, so originally I was trying to incorporate some wine cubbies. Originally I was going to do something out here with that, but I'm really glad I ended up moving it into this space just to make it a little more minimal out here. So up at top we have 4 wine cubbies. These are fairly deep, so I actually have 2 bottles in there. And again, we don't drink very often, but it's nice to have a little spot for that. Up at the very top, I just wanted to fill the space. I wanted everything to go to the ceiling. So we added an extra little cabinet up there, and it's honestly still empty. I've never accessed it, but down the road as we grow, I feel like we could tuck in extra things that we don't need that often. Like, for example, this stuff can move in there if we need it. For the light fixture, I actually repurposed the one that was originally in our mudroom because this one will take up a little less space. I am a big fan of visual comfort lighting, so that's where most of my lighting purchases go to. So that's where this, actually I purchased the sconce at Serena and Lily because they have discounts pretty often. It was very hard to find a sconce there because that's a pretty small space and a lot of sconces like come out tall. So I ended up using more of a gallery light, a very small one, and it ended up working really well. And then we did add molding in here. I feel like eventually I will add molding in the mudroom just to make it cohesive, but the project focus was here, so we added it in here. I'll probably match it in the mudroom whenever I get that urge, but it's not urgent right now. So let's talk about some of the design finishes that I've added to this space. If you're curious on the paint colors, the white I went with Sherwin-Williams Snowbound, and I added in a variety of textures. So the shelving, for example, is more of a, I believe it's a satin finish. It has a little bit more of a gloss because that is a little more durable. Used the same white paint everywhere, but added a different finishing touch to it, which I feel like gives it a little bit more dimension. My original plans for this space was to actually paint the cabinets white as well. We have a white kitchen. However, I ended up going with the color Sherwin-Williams Pediment for the cabinet space. As I was picking paint colors, I really wanted to tie in our mudroom, which this is the color I used in there on our mudroom bench and another cabinet. And because these spaces are so cohesively right next to each other, I wanted to tie that color into the pantry. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I feel like it gave it a lot more visual interest than doing all white. Another reason I wanted to tie these spaces in together is because we did end up removing the door to the pantry. We had lived here for about 1.5 years and we honestly never used the door unless we were having visitors over and we wanted to hide the messy, cluttery pantry space. That's the only time we closed the space off. But when you're walking into the space constantly, it's not super convenient to have a door. And because I knew it was going to be aesthetically beautiful in the end, I figured let's remove the door, open up that wall space. It is honestly surprising how much more open the room feels when I removed that door. It probably took up 3 inches or so, but it made the space feel so much larger. And then we also ended up updating the trim to this doorway as well. The wallpaper that we used in the space was something that I saw on Pinterest and I knew I wanted to incorporate in the pantry. However, I decided to also carry it into the mudroom and I am so happy that we did that. It really kind of finished off the space, made it feel so much larger. Previously it was just painted white and it kind of just felt unfinished, and I feel like the wallpaper truly just tied it all together. And now let's talk about a few things that I do regret with this design or things that I would change in hindsight. So first thing that comes to mind is the sconce wiring. So when we initially did the wiring, we just wanted to walk into the space and the light turn on automatically. We didn't want to have to like separately do accent lighting. So we just had them wire it to the overhead light and there's only one light switch. However, in hindsight, I feel like I wish I did do a separate light switch so that at night we could do an accent lighting. This is something, if down the road I really wanted to change, I could. I know they can just cut into the ceiling and I could just patch up, not me personally, but the painters can patch up and just touch up the paint. But for now, we're just kind of living with it. I don't hate it, but it is something I was going back and forth on in the beginning anyway. So who knows if I had done it the other way, if I would have been feeling one way or another. But right now, I feel like I wish I did wire them separately. Another thing that is not necessarily my favorite is the actual countertop that we went with. I was a little bit rushed to find a countertop to keep the project moving, and I knew I wanted to hopefully find a remnant just to save money. So this is an area that I did choose to save money in. I went with something, it's like a quartz, but it's somewhat artificial looking to me. This countertop also does seem to mark up on the edges often. Like I'm always having to kind of, when I wipe down the counter, the edges get like little gray marks on it, which is a little weird. So in a perfect world, I would have splurged on a gorgeous marble countertop. Also, another thing, I actually was able to fix this is originally when they installed the countertop, the little backsplash actually carried through to the left sidewall. And I hated it. It was just like a chunky piece that was sticking out. It actually took up some countertop space. So when the painters came, I asked if they could remove it and touch that up before they painted, and thankfully they were able to remove it easily. And I'm so glad that I had them remove that because it was just like a chunky eyesore every time I walked in there. But overall, we have been so happy with how this pantry turned out. It truly changed the functionality of our space. It's so nice to have a countertop. It is so much more calming. Like, I truly walk in there and I love everything about the pantry. So I'm really happy with how everything turned out. It's been really easy to keep up as far as the organization, and it's just been so much easier to find things. And randomly, as of now, it's one of my favorite rooms in the house, which I never thought I would say about a pantry. Thank you for joining me on this pantry renovation. I hope you found it inspirational. If you want to see more home content like this, definitely let me know down in the comments and give this video a thumbs up. That helps me in the algorithm over on YouTube. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on Sunday with a really good try-on haul. You are not going to want to miss it. Bye!